Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's video is of album review on the 1982 album Zimmerkamph by Moev, and we're going to get right into it. Um, so Moev was founded in 1981 in Vancouver by I'm looking at my notes here just so I can make sure I get the names right because I'm always not the best when it comes to remembering people's names and their role in the band. Not always, I mean, I'd say maybe half the time. There's some bands that I don't know as well as others for sure. Um, I really only know Move's first two albums. I don't know their last couple, and I think they came back for a little bit. But I do like their sound off the first two albums, but I just haven't got around to getting their other work. But they're founded in 1981 by Tom Ferris, who does keyboards and percussion, and then also Cal Stevenson, who does keyboards and vocals. For this album, they had a lady by the name of Madeline Morris do the vocals, and then also Mark Jowett does the guitar on this album. And Mark Jowett, of course, is known for after the label that this label was on, it folded. He helped start Network Records, which, of course, had everybody from Alien Sex Fiend to Skinny Puppy to Final Cut to, hosted a lot of people, Sarah McLachlan, and yeah, a lot of great artists, a lot of great industrial music and techno and Phil Western and a lot of great artists, was on that label, including Move. And so this album came out in 1982. There's 9 tracks. So the first track is In Your Head. I really like the programming, the sounds. It's really cool guitar. This Madeline Morris's singing is really strong. I looked up her credits, and it doesn't look like she really did much after this album. And it's too bad because I really like the uniqueness of her voice combined with the atmospheric. It's a light atmosphere, not heavy, drenched, or like ethereal or anything like that. But it's got some nice effects on the guitars and keyboards. It's nice combination with the rhythm programming and stuff like that. It's like she almost kind of sounds like a Susie Sue. A little bit at times. It's kind of in that range. 1982. Be like a Juju for. I think Juju came out in '82, right? Um, Kind of sort of has that feel. She doesn't hit those really confident, higher pitched or really out there going like more like a punk or a rock band, but she kind of does a good job of kind of laying in the middle and maybe a little bit more emotional voice than Susie Sue in sort of a melodic way, or maybe a little bit more reserved. But I really like her voice. It's interesting if she would have stayed with the band, what may have come from the second album. But there is some drawbacks in the sound and maybe the evolution of the band's sound between their first and second, and I would assume even their third album. I think that maybe the programming, the use of the machines that they were using was maybe probably not to my liking. I really like the sound in here because it's a little bit more analog. I would imagine they're probably using a 4-track recorder on this album, so I think they got the most of their of the equipment that they had, and there's a nice depth and a nice sound to it, and I wouldn't be ashamed or I think wrong in saying that this album does have some groundbreaking sound to it, and the combination of, again, the guitars, the rhythm, the programming, the keyboards, and the synths. It kind of has like a very forward thinking, and I think it stands really strong now, especially when darkwave and has gotten more popular in the last 10 or 15 years, and kind of that retro sound is more popular. But I think this album really fits in well with that kind of resurgence and that sound. But also in your head, nice keyboards, good layering, good transitions. It's a really strong opener. I got it really. I think it's a very good track. It's based on my ranking. It's my favorite right off the bat. 3.5 stars. I really like Mad Hatter. It's my second favorite. That's track two. Really cool guitar riff, bass line. Again, really strong vocals. I think she kind of probably does her most dramatic singing on this. It almost has like a goth sound to it. The guitar riff, and it's nice. It's nice and a very musical song. It's well balanced. It's again, it's kind of ahead of its time in a way. And like when I hear this track in your head, specifically Mad Hatter, though, when I hear this track, you're kind of like, wow, they could have been so much more. And I think their second album kind of didn't isn't as good as this one to me. But it's it's just it's probably partly because it doesn't have her on the second album. But I think that there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name, who started doing the vocals. Maybe it was Cal, since he does vocals on this one as well. But I'm not sure the lead singer's name on the next albums. But you know the this track is a really good example of the potential of the band where they could have gone. I got this track 3.25 stars, and then track three, strange name. It's called MTMTNME. Not sure what that stands for. Cool atmosphere with the keyboards. It's a little bit punk, a little bit new romantic, a little bit new wave. Again, her voice is really unique. It's really doing a good job of carrying the strength of the album, of the songs. And I'm generally very very particular on voices. I really feel like voices got to fit tone wise and almost sound like an instrument within the context of and the complexity of the song. Like I feel like a voice is just another instrument in a way, and it's just another tone, and the cadence is really important, and the timbre of the voice, and but also not just that, but it has to feel, it has to hit the emotion of the track, right? Or be maybe this is kind of a unique. Her voice is kind of unique in doing that, and you can still kind of tell she's probably a little shy. This might be her first album. Turned out to be maybe the only album that she's ever been on, and you can kind of feel that a little bit, but not in Mad Hatter, not in Mad Hatter or in this track. She's a lot more confident, and there are some moments in the album where her voice is maybe not as confident, or I don't know if running out of lyrics or what, but some of these early songs in the album are really strong, and then towards the end they kind of you know not as strong as songs, so then the vocals aren't there as much either. Um, but really good ending with the melody and the guitar ringing out. Again, another very good track, 3 stars. And then from there the album kind of is pretty consistent, except for the last two songs. Again, there's 9 tracks on here. The first three are super strong. The next four are, still good. And then the last two are kind of, okay. Rotting Geraniums, it's track 4. It almost has an electro beat to it. The keys and guitars are once again strong, solid, and cohesive, nice balance. Nothing really questionable on this track. Nothing fantastic on this track. It's just got a really nice balance of all the things I've been talking about. 2.5 stars. It's a really good track. 90 minutes, track number 5. It's a little bit more new wave. It's almost like Berlin. I wrote that down. Vocals are really different on this one. Pretty strong overall track. Cool bass line. Bridge change is nice. Again, I got it 2 stars. Good track. Remembrance Day. Nice energy. Kind of has like a jangled, distorted guitar. Maybe a bit more dramatic on this song than previous ones. almost to the extreme where it feels like the song's about to break, where it's just like it's running on high adrenaline to where you feel like it's gonna crash, and like it just can't go up from where it's at. It's just it's really dramatic, and it's really like it's almost like it peaking the whole time. Again, another really good track. I got it 2.5 stars. Same thing with Cocoon, 2.5 stars. Solid song. The strings and the violin are nice. Um, Along with the bass and the bridge, has some good moments, but overall, it doesn't really evolve the better music sounds that are on it. I feel like there was an opportunity for it to go even a better, going maybe a little bit deeper and kind of expanding upon some of those sounds would have been nice. But still, again, 2.5 stars. And then the last two tracks, Feline Fräulein and Common House. I didn't really say too much about them. They're okay. The Common House is just kind of a demented kind of sounding outro. Really no lyrics. I think it had a little bit of samples on it, if I remember. I heard this album a couple days ago, and I can't quite remember the last track. Um, if it has any samples on it, I'm pretty sure it does because it's kind of like 3.5 minutes, and it's not doing a lot, but it's a cool outro. It's cool. I got it 1 star. It's okay. And then again, the Feline Fräulein is okay. I didn't really say anything good or really bad about it. Just kind of maybe running out of ideas on the album a little bit with the last two tracks. Just kind of throw an outro on there and then fill up with one more album. I mean, one more song at the end. Not sure if that was the case, but it just kind of feels like it. So kind of the overall, it's kind of like I don't know if I'd really say this album is EBM. There is kind of an EBM feel in there. Um, it's a surprising good mix of keyboards, grooves, and guitars. Madeline voice again is really strong and works well. First half of the record is good, and again it's kind of edging on groundbreaking sound in a way. That's very unique sound, and maybe with a better producer or a couple more good songs or something like that, they could have made this album even better, and then also done some a good follow up album, better than the one that there was. When I think of the opportunities, again, it kind of runs out of steam the second half. The volume is a little low on the album. The dynamics aren't quite there, but that's nice. I say that a lot about albums that are recorded in 1982. But considering this is probably recorded on a 4 track, they probably did a pretty good job considering what they had. So when I look at that's kind of the overall of the album. When I count up the stars and round them out, I got 21.25 stars divided by 9 tracks, 2.36. And that would have been a little bit stronger if it weren't for the last two tracks. Both of those got 1 star. Otherwise, it would have been a bit above 2 out of 5. So I gave it a couple extra points, and I brought it to 60 out of 100. I think it's a good album. So I wanted to kind of ease it up a couple more points and put it into the good album. Is it close to very good? Yeah, probably a song or two. Again, I could say that a lot about albums. Kind of getting to the next level. But the first 3 or 4 tracks, just really good stuff. If the second half was like the first half, I think that would have brought it into the 70s as well. But I really enjoy this album though. Just because it seems like a low rating doesn't mean I dislike this album. I think it's a good album. Um, I just can't say it's very good. Just from the second half, just kind of peters out a little bit, and but a lot of good things to like. Definitely one of those bands that was like, what could have happened? If something else, you know, if they did another album with her, or yeah, I mean, I'm still interested to dive a little bit more into Move. Again, I only have the first two albums. I'd like to get some of the singles. I think I do have my Crucify. I do have that single as well. I want to say that's from the second album, or it could have been the third album. I want to say it's from the second album. But I'm gonna look more into them. Um, there's a lot of bands that I still haven't finished out their catalog. A lot of artists that have like 2 to 7 albums. And I like, but I haven't really. Sometimes I buy the earlier stuff because I feel like just knowing the evolution of electronics and what people were using, I tend to like the stuff in the early 80s because they're a little bit more avant-garde, maybe a little bit more experimental. They're not, MIDI hasn't really come into really full use by 1982, or even 83, 84, but, people aren't using Yamaha DX7s and they're the machines are a lot. I'm really, if you haven't noticed by now, I'm really into the evolution of electronic music, and I really enjoy the rawness of late 70s and early 80s synthesizers and beat machines and things like that. And I felt by the middle 80s it got probably too exact, and some of the sounds were maybe a little too dry and boring. And there's like a nice cadence and a reverberance and a tone and all those things with a lot of unique synthesizers and keyboards from those early days, and even drum machines. Like case in point, this is a great example. So I tend to go more towards that. Um, Towards the later 80s was kind of a difficult time for a lot of early 80s bands to kind of evolve into, because maybe they did sort of give up the early sounds and sort of go into a more streamlined, especially in like industrial album. The chances of me liking an album from 1989 versus an album from 1982 in industrial is probably I'm gonna favor the early stuff if I had to choose before even hearing them, because I do like the rawness. A case in point, you have somebody like Cabaret Voltaire who sort of went away from industrial sort of that sound towards the middle to late 80s and went into techno. Richard Kirk and even Stephen Wallinger, Malinger, sorry, um, sort of went into techno and stuff like that. So I can see how that a lot of them kind of processed or went over to that field because maybe industrial was becoming a little dry and not as experimental, or maybe a little too you know polished. And but that's what's unique about something like Skinny Puppy, is that they were still able to kind of pull it over for a few more years. Like, you see the extreme of like Skinny Puppy, The Process in 1995 compared to the sounds of like even even Viva Sex 6 in 1988. So, I mean, you kind of, you can look back on it retroactively and kind of point this out, but during the time that's how it was. You would kind of evolve and use the new equipment, and it made it easier. And there was kind of like a knowledge of a lot of these producers, Kevin Key not being one, where they were like, new isn't always better, right? Just because this says bass doesn't mean it sounds like this bass. You know what I mean? Like you had to have like an understanding of those electronics and the sound, and really, you know, and not everybody did that. Somebody, okay, we're going to go with the new keyboard. It's got the new sounds. It's a little more polished. It's newer, right? You leave the old sounds, but a lot of those changes ruined a lot of the instrumental music, a lot of the sounds in electronic music during those days. And of course, a lot of new ones were done really well with some of that stuff. Like ambient techno and into the '90s and stuff like that. A lot of rave music. Um, but in industrial and EBM, those a lot of the early '80s stuff is better than the later '90s in a I'm not saying the songs are. I'm just saying like the particular sounds from modulars and older keyboards are just more appealing to me, especially, and maybe a lot of other hardcore kind of fans of EBM or new wave or industrial music. Just those instruments have have a better resonance and a better sound. To me, anyways. Again, but good album overall. I really like this album. 60 out of 100. Just feel like it kind of ran out of steam. But a really good album. Check out this album if you haven't heard it, and tell me what you think of Move. And is there a later album I should check out by them? I don't. I haven't. I'm doing a couple reviews today from people who said I should review something. So I'm reviewing two albums, that somebody else recommended. So should I recommend? I mean, if you want to recommend me to review another Move album, just let me know. I'll be curious. Otherwise, I'll kind of get around to it when I get around to it. Got a lot of music. All right. Thanks so much for watching.